When the position of appointment secretary for Governor Swartzenegger was vacated, I was given the position, and I did that for about 3 years. We did about 3,000 appointments, all of which ran through my office. Our job was to vet applicants who were interested in serving in the administration and make recommendations to the governor. Imagine I have a fishbowl with 17,000 goldfish, and I need to pick out the right one.
Explain to the audience how you have helped the Latino community here in Southern California.
Many years ago, a group of guys and ladies got together and we formed a group called the Hispanic 100. The purpose then was to be a spokesman for business people, independent small business people, which we didn't feel were getting sort of the traction that they needed to be successful. Thank you. Thank you. Happy to be here.
Now, I want to get a little bit of your background. So can you go a little bit of where you're from, where you grew up?
Absolutely. I was born in New York City to be specific, and lived in Brooklyn and then the Bronx. Went to elementary school in the Bronx, PS 47. Didn't even have a name, just a number. Lived there till I was 12 years old. Then my family uprooted and moved to California.
Question.
Sure.
Are you Latino?
By birth, yes. By ancestors, yes. And I think I am, totally.
Okay, from where?
Well, some people might say I'm a New York Rican. I consider myself sort of fungible. I've lived in California, where there are very few Puerto Ricans, very few, at least at the time, very few people from the Caribbean islands, and I have lived amongst and with mostly Mexicans in California. But of course, in New York, it was the reverse, although there may be more Mexicans in New York now than there were then. But in New York, it was mostly Puerto Ricans, Cubans, Dominicans, and I counted amongst that group many friends and grew up in what I would consider a idyllic childhood, even though I was playing stickball on the street and had to dodge cars. I have nothing but the fondest of memories of my childhood. And like I said, then we moved to California, lived in Sherman Oaks, which is about as suburban as you can get in the day. And there it was a whole different environment. I found that being from New York, however, I was street savvy, as it were, and so I wasn't intimidated. Quickly made good friends in Sherman Oaks. Graduated from Van Nuys Junior High, played baseball in Van Nuys Junior High, and then we moved to Orange County as a family. I lived in Orange County, except for when I went to law school, since 1966.
How was that back then?
Believe it or not, I used to play on the Garden Grove Freeway while it was being constructed. Used to ride our bikes there. I would play in the Westminster City Hall, particularly in the jails. We would climb into the jails and over the jails, and while that was being constructed. Went to Cal State Fullerton. Had to drop out of Cal State Fullerton because I didn't have the money to continue. Saved up my money, went back to school and graduated with a degree in accounting, business administration with an emphasis in accounting, and went to work for then Coopers & Lybrand. And after about a year, I decided I wanted to practice law, that was really my love. And so I took the LSAT back in McPherson, Kansas, while I was on an audit for Coopers & Lybrand. Did well enough that I was, with both my grades and my LSAT, that I was accepted to the University of Michigan Law School. I didn't realize as much as I do now how top flight of school it really was. Graduated from Michigan Law School, came back and worked for a law firm in Newport Beach. Did that for about 6 or 7 years. Then I realized that my then 6-year-old son had no idea who I was because I was spending so much time at work. So I decided then that I would leave the big firm and go out and start my own practice so that I could do things like coach Little League and be more involved in my son's life, which I did. And did that for probably 12 to 14 years. at which point I was given an opportunity to serve with Governor Swartzenegger in his administration after having worked on his campaign.
How did that feel?
Well, professionally, I think I was ready for a change. I wanted to do something different. I was offered an opportunity to be a commissioner on the Gambling Control Commission. I had no knowledge of gambling, didn't have any clients that were in that business. I thought it'd be a chance for me to broaden my perspective. I accepted an appointment, was confirmed unanimously by the California Senate. Did that for about 2 years, a little over 2 years, 2.5 years, when the position of appointments secretary for Governor Swartzenegger was vacated. I was asked if I would consider taking the position. I interviewed with the governor. I was given the position, and I did that for about 3 years, during which time we did about 3,000 appointments, all of which ran through my office.
3,000 appointments?
3,000 appointments. There are clearly over 200 and something boards and commissions that have been created by the legislature.
So explain to the audience what that's like, because, okay, so if they want to talk to the governor, they have to go through you to make an appointment?
Well, when you say appointment, this is not necessarily an appointment to see the governor. These are appointments made by the governor to various boards and commissions.
Okay.
And so I had a staff of 17 when we were at our peak. Our job was to vet applicants who were interested in serving in the administration and make recommendations to the governor about who should serve on these boards and commissions. I ended up getting input from the legislature, from the media, from business interests, from the general public, and then of course people who just took it upon themselves to seek an appointment. And we had a database of about 17,000 applications. And from that database and from the recommendations that we received from people with who we trusted, we compiled a list of appointment candidates, vetted them, and then it was my job to sit with the governor one-on-one, and we would go through these candidates, and I'd make my recommendations, and typically he would accept them because of the protocols that we had built into the system, making sure that the candidates were good bona fide candidates, would not embarrass the governor, were ready to do the job and do the job well. And so in addition to that aspect of the job, I was sort of the governor's chief headhunter. He would from time to time have someone that he was interested in serving in the administration, and he tasked me from time to time with reaching out to them and convincing them that they should leave whatever lucrative position they were in then and come work for state government. and that became my job. So, and in addition to that, I made speeches. I was sort of a stand-in for the governor at certain occasions, certain events, and found myself traveling all around the state, going as far south as the Imperial Valley, which I don't think any appointment secretary has ever gone to Fresno, which appointment secretaries rarely get to.
Why is that?
It's distance from Sacramento.
Okay.
I found when I first took the job that a disproportionate number of appointees resided in the Bay Area and in Sacramento. And this is a huge state, and the majority of the population lives in Southern California, but I didn't think then, and I still think it's probably true today, that Southern California is as represented as it should be in the boards and commissions of the state. So that's why I reached out. My goal was to geographically diversify our appointments.
So did you live in Sacramento?
I did not. I actually, this was during the first, the economic turndown of 2007. And so I didn't feel like it was good for me to sell my home and move to Sacramento. So I ended up traveling to Sacramento weekly from Southern California, where I live. And the reason for that is the position of appointment secretary takes you around the state so frequently, there was no need necessary to live in Sacramento. Certainly you got up there, I did, once every week to meet with staff to keep things moving, keep the machine churning. But I found myself traveling outside of the office often enough that at least half my trips were to Southern California anyway. If I started out in Southern California, it was probably more efficient and less costly to the people for me to just travel locally. So I would travel to Sacramento weekly. Typically, I'd be up there Sunday night or Monday morning, and I would stay the entire week unless I was traveling on state business outside of Sacramento, at which point I would leave Sacramento, and sometimes I would come to Southern California. Sometimes I went even further north, rarely, but sometimes further north than Sacramento. My job was to actually get around the state and gin up interest in people serving on boards and commissions. I don't think people understand the importance of these boards and commissions and the impact that these boards and commissions have on your daily lives. These are,
Like, could you give an example a little bit?
Sure. There are 7 state regional water quality board districts. Each one of those issues permits for people to engage in activities which may impact our water. Another example, the state teacher credentialing board. They set standards by which teachers are credentialed in this state. There is the medical board, which sets standards by which doctors may practice as well as be disciplined for malpractice and other wrongdoings.
So in what way can people get involved or know the importance of it, or like how?
Well, if someone has an interest in serving on a board or commission, the first place to start would be go to Google the governor's office. There'll be a list of all the boards and commissions, and as I mentioned, there are well over 200 boards and commissions in this state. And what vacancies may arise in the near future, and more importantly, what qualifications candidates need to have. You can imagine sitting, as I did in my office, looking at a list of 17,000 people online and trying to pick the one person for whom this particular appointment is perfect. It's too time-consuming to actually do. Mm-hmm. Even if you had a staff, you just couldn't go through all of that. So when I used to go around the state, I would say, look, imagine I have a fishbowl with 17,000 goldfish, and I need to pick out the right one. And we do, unfortunately, live in a political world, so you had to consider, well, how are the governor's supporters going to react to this? How are the governor's opponents going to react to this? And you had to balance all of that, and you make your recommendation. And I was fortunate and pleased to say that I made 3,000 plus recommendations, and only a couple of instances, only one that I can really think of where the governor said he wanted to go in a different direction. So we did our job well. We screened our applicants well. I enjoyed the job tremendously. Really, I felt I was having a tremendous impact on the policies of the state. I tell folks when I spoke about it that these boards and commissions are basically unelected representatives of the people.
In your time there, you think that you had a huge impact? I mean, it sounds like it in a time of crisis, too.
Yeah, well, you're right. In terms of crisis, remember I mentioned that we were going through an economic crisis at the time. I actually when I started my position, I was making X. By the time I finished, I was making 60% of X as a salary. So as all of us on the staff, we all took pay cuts during the last 3 years of the administration. Not that others in government didn't suffer as well, but we certainly contributed our share to trying to resolve the situation. But yes, we did. I think we had a tremendous impact on policy. One instance where I'm sure without a gubernatorial appointment that was made, we wouldn't have the desalination plant that now exists in Carlsbad. In another instance, the governor wanted an extension of a toll road and didn't get it because the Coastal Commission turned him down after a state Recreation and Parks Commission that was chaired by the governor's brother-in-law opposed it and opposed the governor. And that was an interesting interesting situation at that point. It became very newsworthy around the world, where the governor was feuding publicly with his then brother-in-law. And there were some interesting insights that I could relate if you'd like me to.
Maybe I'll bring you back for that.
Yeah, sure.
Now, today is about you.
Thank you.
And so then after that, you started you started doing your business, the law?
Yes, I went back to the practice of law after 5.5 years of being in state government, and have done that since. I'm basically a transactional business lawyer still. Hope to soon retire. I'm sort of getting to that point in my career, and I've just had a fascinating career in life, in my view.
Now, explain to the audience how you have helped the Latino community here in Southern California.
We early on, I was a member of the California Hispanic Chamber of Commerce, the Orange County Hispanic Chamber of Commerce, the Orange County Hispanic Bar Association. I was the International Business Person of the Year for the Hispanic Chamber of Commerce. I have traveled to Mexico and Central America on business, even on our own, and with others on our own dime, trying to assist people to do business in the United States.
Can you tell that? Is there a story specific?
Let me relate one. There was a group of 4 of us, a businessman, an accountant, myself as a lawyer, and a medical doctor. And we went to Chiapas, Mexico. We stayed, there wasn't a luxury hotel. We stayed at a Holiday Inn, which was fine, but we were warned not to leave the hotel, which was certainly contrary to our custom, because whenever we traveled, I always take great pride and joy in just walking and seeing the sights and seeing the people. And we were told not to leave the hotel. And on one instance, one day we were invited to meet with the governor of Chiapas for dinner at his residence. And so we all piled into a van and started to go to the governor's residence, when I looked behind us and there was a Jeep. And in that Jeep were military personnel, including having a .45 caliber machine gun, and we were told that they were our security. And that our being in town, so to speak, was a well-known secret. And so and we were there solely to help an ejido to take the coffee beans that they were growing and selling for next to nothing to a U.S. Company that would produce coffee, and we were trying to convince them that what they ought to do is make their own coffee and do their own brand. And we helped them do the branding, we helped them do the qualifying, we helped them get on the shelf here in grocery stores, and it was a tremendous experience for us. And that's some of what we did. I met.
But I think what the audience wants to know, you came out of it okay.
We came out of it okay. One of the other interesting experiences that we were helicoptered into a remote.
Where now?
Chiapas.
Okay.
A remote part of Chiapas that you could only get there by water. It was really surrounded by water. And we landed, and the village children, and there must have been 50 of them, came running out. We were, I don't know what they thought of us, but coming out of the sky in a helicopter. But we found ourselves knee-deep in children who obviously were fascinated and curious as to who we were and what we were about. And that's just one of the experiences that, I can still vividly recall it, even though it happened well over 20 years ago. It was just one of those experiences that I don't think very few people will ever get to say they enjoyed.
Yeah, I think very few people are gonna go to Chiapas.
that may be.
Especially being helicoptered in.
I do remember.
It's a very isolated area.
Exactly. I do remember as we sat with some of the village elders and chatted, and having children at our feet, we were offered a refreshment, a local refreshment, and I was given a glass. And
did you drink it?
Well, that's the point. That the glass had a liquidy, a cloudy liquid that I just didn't feel comfortable drinking. So
I will be uncomfortable too.
So I pretended to take a sip, and then I shared it with the children because I'm sure
they're used
to the whatever's in the water or whatever.
Yeah.
And my glass never got back to me, so I was able to get out of it that way. And I do remember having some very vicious mosquitoes. We were all in Levi's, thick Levi's, and these mosquitoes were biting us through the Levi's. It was a very interesting time. We were successful.
All for those coffee beans.
All for the coffee beans, and
helping the people.
And that led in part to my being named the international business person at the Hispanic Chamber.
Okay, at least you got,
some
recognition.
Got some recognition. Didn't make any money, but that wasn't our goal. This was not about us.
Exactly.
We were down there to try to help the ejido, and in fact we had one session, and I'll call it a negotiating session, where one of their representatives visited us here. And we had a meeting in my office, and before the meeting would started, the representative from Chiapas said a prayer, but the prayer was in a local Indian dialect, something that none of us had ever heard any of these words. We knew a little Spanish, but some of us were very fluent, and it turned out that it was just a prayer that perhaps handed down from generation to generation. And then the juxtaposition of him saying this prayer and then opening his laptop, it was like surreal to see this happen.
What else have you helped?
Many years ago, a group of guys and ladies got together, and we formed a group called the Hispanic 100. And the purpose then was to be a spokesman for business people, independent small business people, which we didn't feel were getting sort of the traction that they needed to be successful. And we wanted to focus on those business people who really were self-reliant. We spend more of our time and money now helping educate Latinos and Latinas here in Orange County. We do scholarships, and we give out a significant number of scholarships each year. We have a system in which applicants can apply, and our goal is to pick them out and couple them with a mentor. First of all, because many of these kids come from situations where they don't have parents who can help or understand what the child is going through. And so I'm very proud to say that every year, and we've grown each year since we've started, this coming year we've got more applicants than we have mentors. So we're going to be doing a push for mentors, because we really do think it's important that there be a mentor, and we don't want to saddle mentors with more than one or have mentees share their mentor. It's better to have a one-on-one. Occasionally, we do have a two-on-one. I'm really pleased at the results that we've had. We've had some tremendous young people come through and have graduated from our program. Many of them come back and become mentors. And we're to the point now where we're going to ask some of our mentees to serve on our board, because we are cognizant of the fact that for the organization to succeed, it needs new blood. And we want them to succeed, and we want during that transition to have the old blood, so to speak, the institutional memory that we could pass along to the younger folks, so that guys like me can cycle off and be there when they need me. But it's time for them to pick up the mantle and help the next generation. And we hope in the near future to expand beyond Orange County, to extend our tentacles into LA. And we were talking with some folks in Texas. We have the beginning of a national brand
That's very incredible. So I commend you for that, and everybody who's in it.
Well, you'll have to come by.
Yes.
You'll have to come
Invite
see.
me, I'll go.
Definitely.
Now, before coming here, you told me something that I was very surprised. You love, one of the things that keeps you rooted to your Latino roots is music. Not any kind of music, but salsa.
Salsa music is one of my first loves. And I grew up listening to rock and roll, of course. Everyone does who's grown up in this country. But my mother used to tell me that I was listening to salsa when she was carrying me. And
You were like something.
because you can hear when you're being carried, you can hear music. And so I can remember going to family parties, and as a young child being allowed to stay awake on, for example, New Year's Eve, as long as we were behaved, and watching all of my parents, their friends, and my uncles and aunts have a great time dancing to salsa music. And those are some of the best memories and most vivid memories I have. And so I still can't go a New Year's Eve without playing some salsa music, even just for myself.
And you dance with it?
I can,
feel the music?
I feel the music. I'm sure I feel it as well as the best salsero. I mean, I dance as well as they do, but I'm sure I feel it just as well as they do. It's the only music that I can listen to where I get a chill.
You get a chill from it.
I get a chill from listening to the music. And so, yes, I love salsa music. I grew up like I said, grew up in New York. There's lots of salsa music all around me. My grandmother lived on East 163rd Street, which is right in the middle of the Puerto Rican Harlem, and I can remember going there and you're just a kid. You're just a wide-eyed kid, and you're listening to this music, and you see the joy on everyone's face, and you associate it, and you continue to associate it to this day. At least I do. And in fact, I was speaking with my wife the other day, and I said, because of the pandemic, everybody's been locked down. I said, I want to find out when is the next salsa convention, because there are conventions from time to time. They have them in LA, not in Orange County. They haven't had them for a couple of years. I want to go to the next one, or find one that we can travel to and just watch. I say I harbor no illusions that I'm a great dancer, but I feel the music.
Going back to Puerto Rican roots, what food is your favorite Puerto Rican?
Pernil. In fact, just the other day I ordered a pork leg. For the first time in my life, for Christmas Day, I'm going to cook a pork leg. I mean, my mother used to do it she passed a few years ago. My mother used to do it every Christmas. My son has even picked up the tradition, but unfortunately he's moved to Texas, so he won't be with us this Christmas. So I'm taking it upon myself. I'm going to try it. I've got the recipe. I've certainly eaten enough of it during my lifetime to understand whether it's going to taste good or not. So I'm going to cook pernil, which is pork leg, roasted pork leg, about a 20-pounder, and having, for the first time since I've been married, my wife's family over and they are not Puerto Rican. They're looking forward to having a Puerto Rican-style Christmas dinner. So you have plantains, plátanos, maduros, rice and beans, a salad, and still
your dish.
And then maybe some flan. So I'm going to do it. I'm going to do it on my own and hope it works. But that's going to be my tribute to my parents this Christmas.
Well, thank you so much.
You're welcome.
For coming today to tell your story, and for the audience to get to learn a little bit about your profession, so they can know the importance of pay attention to politics and government, locally, statewide, nationally.
Correct.
Thank you so much.
My pleasure, Jackie. Thank you.